So today I want to tell the story of why I first blacked out. To start, I just want to say none of my blackout has been because I disliked my old tattoos really or that I regret them. None of it has been because I hate any of my old work or any of the artists that did my old work or anything like that. I didn't have any gang related tattoos, no anti religious tattoos, no hateful racist tattoos or anything like that, any of the other suspected black work or blackout tropes that exist out there. Yeah, it wasn't like, oh, I just had a bunch of doodles on me that I just wanted to cover up because they were done in jail or anything like that. My story is quite a bit different. Um, it really starts, really, we'll go as far back as 2011 when I first got my right arm tattooed. Um, I first got my right bicep done, outer bicep. I had an album cover by a band I loved and still love, Lacrimosa. I had the little band logo right here. It was a mime, and the album cover was like a fallen angel or a demon, looking downcast, perched on a rock, uh, big wings, the whole thing. It didn't make a very great tattoo. I really, really liked the image. I still like the image, but sometimes the best image doesn't make the best tattoo. So that was kind of what happened there. Um, After we did that tattoo, I decided to give it some background detailing with that same artist, and we decided to go with flames, fire, all kinds of stuff like that. Sort of make it like a hellish landscape for the background. We did into the inner bicep as well. We did a big evil-looking tower in here with more fire and a big crescent moon that went almost up into my armpit. That was probably my favorite part of that tattoo. But none of those colors really worked, and that whole area got overworked and very, very, very scarred and damaged. And anytime after that, I tried to touch it up. The colors they just were what they were for the most part. They weren't coming back, and they didn't really make a lot of sense. It just kind of didn't go the way I wanted it to go. So I left that bicep alone for quite a while until, say, 2015. I started trying to kind of build the lower sleeve, and I was going to a new artist for it because that artist actually had left town. Um, and they were trying to match the old, like, upper sleeve to the bottom. And so they tried to match the colors. Well, all that ended up happening is I ended up getting more mess out of that, even more problems because um, the new work was actually put in poorly too. That artist was no more capable of doing what I wanted than the first artist, and probably shouldn't have been trying to match that first artist's style. Um, but at the same time, I understand they didn't want to create something entirely new when we had something so committed going on up here already. So we ended up doing more flame and more like kind of hellish imagery down here. We had added a big skull. I had the one ring on my elbow for some reason, and I had a Witch King tattoo here, and I had these old traditional roses here, and I had an old traditional piece here that said "Love Lost." It was a dagger, and I had another one of those over here too, actually. But anyway, um, we ended up doing about a 6 hour session on this wrist. And 6 hours on a wrist is not a good idea. You've only got about an hour before that skin starts to get chewed up. But again, I was with an artist that wasn't too experienced, and we made quite the mess of this wrist. So 6 hours on this wrist, and for that whole week, I couldn't move my hand or wrist much. My whole hand turned into a cuff. The worst thing is, the work that was done there looked pretty good at first, but when it healed, none of it stayed the way that it was put in. We had all kinds of color blends, yellows, oranges, a little bit of pink, red, everything to make that fire look real cool. But when it started healing, it was dropping out everything. I ended up with just a bunch of scar tissue and some coloration. My wife told me it looked like I had some kind of skin disease the first time we did it. So we ended up doing it multiple times over the next couple of years. And no matter what we did, it did look a little better, but it still looked chewed up and kind of gnarly. Now, while this was being done, I had my other artist, Lee, was working on this arm. And we did the spawn sleeve on this arm. There was a lot of cover-ups in there because I had some old tattoos that I wanted to blend into that sleeve. And that arm was looking amazing. There was no problem with that arm at all. So he's looking at this arm as he's doing this one. And all the while he's telling me, like, the only thing you're going to be able to do to fix that, Jer, is black it out. And we both laugh. And I had no intention of doing that because at that point in my life, I seen blackout as a bit of a waste. In fact, I seen a guy out when I was shopping once who had a couple of black sleeves. And I thought to myself, imagine what else he could have put there. And instead, it's just black. Now, I would never say that. And I'm just not one to judge people. You do you is my kind of motto when it comes to those sorts of things. But that goes to show you how much I've changed sitting here with all black tattoos right now. But anyway, at that point in my life, I hadn't even considered the idea of blackout. I just wanted to move on to other projects. So when Lee had finished this arm and my other artist had finished this arm, I started working on my torso and my back piece. And I still have my back piece to this day done by Lee. It's one of my favorite pieces. So yeah, we finished those up, and as time went on, I sitting in my mostly finished suit because of course I had other artists doing my legs. At that point in my life, I was working with about 5 or 6 different artists and getting tattooed probably 3 times a week. I feel like I was making up for lost time, as when I was younger, I didn't have the money to spend on tattoos. I didn't own my house yet, and my finances weren't quite what I wanted them to be. So once I got a little older and had that money, I felt like I was catching up for lost time, and I had all these ideas already. I just wanted to get to it. So I think a lot of the time I was going to the wrong artists to get some of these things done, and not necessarily the cheap artists, but I had ideas that probably no one in the area could do quite right. I just wanted them done. I didn't care how they were done so much. I just wanted to get them done. So I had all kinds of things going on, but more and more I kept looking at this right arm thinking about how I wish it could have been better. Not necessarily even just that design, but just overall this arm felt like the weak link of my entire body of work. So to start with, I took Lee up on his offer of, hey, you know what, let's black this arm out. I think he thought I was kidding at first because we laughed about it, but he was fully on board for it. We started with the upper half sleeve because that was in the worst shape. And once we finished that upper half sleeve, took a couple passes to get all that scarring saturated because, as I've said before, scarred work is harder to cover. And there was a lot of scarring, especially in the inner bicep. So once we finished that up, I started looking at that upper half sleeve and thinking, this is my new favorite part of my whole torso. Let's add some more. So we came down farther down, leaving a few pieces. We left this fallen angel here for a while. We left the skull here, and we left little Rose here. But as time went on, those guys left too. I ended up blacking those out as well because blackout is more addictive, I find, than any other type of tattoo. When you see that solid black sitting next to other work that's not quite as solidly saturated, it just makes everything else look weaker next to it, which is why I've had to touch up, like, say, this chest piece or the eye so much so that it stands out. But when you're looking at that solid black, there really is no room for error because errors show so clearly in black work. They don't show as clearly in any other work. So while so many people think blackouts are boring or artistically not that challenging, while technically they are incredibly challenging, and any error in your work shows so clearly and can ruin an entire bodysuit, really, I think, which is why I work so hard keeping mine so solid and continue to work on it to perfect it. Um, but yeah, after I finished this right arm, it was around when I got married to my wife, Sarah, obviously. I started kind of wanting to continue my tattoo work. I had been kind of done for about a month or two at that point, so I hadn't been done long, but I knew I didn't really want to stop, and I know that with Blackout I can continue tattooing. So I decided to start blacking out this my left arm. I started at the wrist and we worked up. We got all the way up to the shoulder, and then I took a bit of a break from that arm while it was healing. We started hitting my neck. People were really confused by that because I had a pretty cool neck piece, but as cool as the red neck was, and I did it 3 or 4 times to make sure that that red was super vibrant, I always thought I thought later, maybe red was never a great idea for me, considering I was always the goth kid. I was always the guy with trench coats and spikes and eyeliner as a kid. Black nails sometimes, like the bright red. From a tattoo kind of standpoint, it did seem cool, but it never really matched my sensibilities. Like, I was always all black clothing and whatever, so why would I have this all red suit? It just didn't really make a lot of sense for me. But it did as when I was thinking about it as a kid, because when you're younger, you think about tattoos more as the images. You want a cool comic book character you really loved, or you want a portrait of a celebrity, or like a picture of your dog that died, or a quote that you really love. And I mean, I still have a few of those, but you think about tattoos more as individual images, not necessarily an aesthetic for life, or as just part of the journey. I found out a lot later than I wish I had that what was valuable to me about body mods and tattooing and piercings in general, and why I keep doing it, isn't because I enjoy necessarily the look that I get from the experience, but because I love the experience and I don't want it to stop. Like, I know I'm not alone when I say that one of the most valuable parts of body mod in general is the journey itself. Taking yourself to new limits, surpassing your old self, being in control of your body in a way that you can't be in control of other parts of your life. Some people have asked me, for example, what I'm going to do now that I'm fully blacked out. How is that going to continue? And if you've been following these videos, you can see that I've already started what's next. I have this white ink moon. It's getting more white every day, it seems like. One pass on a hand. If I can get white ink to stay one pass on a hand, when there are still some tattoo artists that don't even like tattooing hands because they don't stay well, if I can do that, then I can keep going with white ink or black ink, black on black, as I have with this rose. I can keep going anywhere from here. So when I blacked out this arm, even then, I never thought of that as the end of that. I never thought if I black out my whole body, it has to be over. I'm the kind of guy that thinks, as long as I'm alive, I'm probably going to be tattooing and stretching or anything like that. I'll be doing something with body mods as long as I'm around. As long as I'm able to, I will be. Happy and healthy, I'll be doing body mods. So blackout for me was never necessarily the end zone or the finishing suit. It was always kind of like a conduit to a new place, or a second project to my first project, which was the first bodysuit. So yeah, the third bodysuit's starting now, and people have asked me, okay, so what are you going to do after that? Well, there's always things to touch up. That's part of that I really love about black work is if you don't like getting tattooed, your black work is going to look bad eventually, or like faded or patchy. Where since I like being tattooed and I like the lifestyle of being tattooed, that just gives me more to pick away at. I know we all come up in this world of Instagram and online images that are edited, and you never really get to see flaws in work, but flaws occur in all work over time. It's just with black work, those flaws will really show because you have such a solid body of work that if you have like a big patch right here and you're standing there with a whole bodysuit full black, your eye is gonna go right to that flaw. So you really have to stay on those kinds of things and take care of it almost like it's a living organism. It's kind of like just something that I really enjoy picking away at as a passion project now, I think. Anyway, this has kind of gone into the weeds a little, so I hope that this has helped understand part of the appeal of black work for me. And I will be making another video probably for next week, going over the inspiration behind the first suit, some of the old tattoos that were in the first suit, and more about what I think went wrong with the suit in general, and probably get into some more on what I want to do in the third suit as well. So I hope you've enjoyed this video and have a nice day.